What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Zamboni. I am an herbalist and astrologer at the Alchemist Kitchen. Thanks so much for hanging out with me every week. I am here to talk about the astrology of the week ahead. Before I do that, I want to let you know that I do forecasts daily, and so you can, if you follow my page, you'll be able to see what I've written about each day, as well as I have a Patreon page where I explain sort of in-depth some of the basic astrological concepts and how to use that practically in your everyday life, how to understand your horoscopes better, that sort of thing. So make sure and check out the link in my bio for all that. So here we are going to talk about the week that's coming up here, the second week of May, and it is a busy week. So we had a little bit of a week off there where not so much was happening, where it just wasn't as much of a big deal, the things that were happening. But this week we sort of turn a corner, turn around in a lot of ways, and we've got some new stuff to go. So let's just jump right in there. So the first thing that is going to happen is on Monday, Mercury is going to move into Gemini. So Mercury is moving super fast at this point. Mercury is doing about 2 degrees a day. So that is a fast Mercury. That is, there's a lot to say and there's a lot to think about. And so Mercury in Gemini, Mercury rules Gemini. And so Mercury is very strong there in Gemini. So when it comes to doing Mercury things, if you have a project to, like a writing project, or if you have something to read, or if you are going to do some kind of translation or some kind of communication, or it's time to move from here to there or send a thing or anything like that, this is all Mercury stuff, right? And so Mercury is very strong in this position in Gemini and is moving very quickly. And so this is going to be helpful. This is super good for Mercury things. So if you've got these kinds of projects, now's a great time to get started on that kind of thing. But that's not all that's going on. Also in Gemini, we've got Venus, right? And so Venus has been in Gemini for a good long time at this point, and this week is going to station retrograde, is going to turn around and go backwards. So this is, Venus typically likes to talk about passion and desires and what kinds of things really matter in your heart, what kind of things turn you on, and so this is going to be a time to really dive deep into what matters to you and what your passions are, what your true desires are, and what do you really want out of things? And then, the converse of that also is, what do you not want from things anymore? What are you ready to leave behind? So Venus retrograde is a time when there's sort of like a stripping off of the outer layers and the armor and, the stuff, the protective stuff. And so there's a feeling of vulnerability and sensitivity here that is super important. And so Venus goes retrograde every 18 months or so. So that's not very often, relative to like Mercury retrograde every 3 months or something like that, right? So this is kind of a major moment, and it's going to be taking about 40 days between May 13th, that's Wednesday, and June 26th. And so there's this 40-day period where we're going to be really looking at these kinds of things and sort of feeling things bubble up. And this is square to Neptune. And so there's this feeling of like potential for disillusionment and that sort of stuff. It might sort of feel like the sky is falling a little bit. It's okay to feel all these things. You don't need to, now is a time for compassion and sensitivity and gentleness, right? It's important to be gentle with yourself and gentle with others around you who, it's likely that everyone is going to be feeling kind of sensitive about some stuff, about the kinds of things that we really care about truly in a heart kind of way, in a heart-centered kind of way. So it's important to not be judgmental around your desires and to, really just kind of give it the space that it needs. And so because Mercury is in Gemini, also a good way to maybe think about this might be to do some journaling this week. And so, just write some things out and write about where you are with the things. And so I'm going to do a workshop on this in about 2 weeks time. So tune in for that, for the kind of more in-depth version of that. That's going to be through the Alchemist Kitchen. So you'll hear about it, if you're on this page, but, just be aware of that. And, now is not a time, now is the time to be gentle with yourself. And so just remember that. If you remember nothing else from this talk, remember to be nice and kind and gentle to yourself. But Venus retrograde in Gemini is not the only retrograde that's happening. So Jupiter is also going to turn retrograde this week. Saturn is also going to turn retrograde this week. And so Jupiter and Saturn are retrograde about a third of the year every year. And so their time being retrograde is less important than the 40 days that Venus is retrograde. But during the stations, so station just means stop, right? And so during the time when they stop and they turn around, then those are sort of heightened periods of activity and emphasis on whatever's going on with Saturn and Jupiter. So especially people who have strong placements in late Capricorn or in early Aquarius, which is where these planets are, that is, those are going to get sort of extra emphasis, extra oomph on whatever it is that they're doing. So Saturn stuff tends to be difficult. It tends to be a challenge. There's a feeling here of, just having to grind through it. It's just, it can feel long, right? And then Jupiter retrograde Jupiter retrograde is a little bit less of a fabulous Jupiter. Jupiter likes to sort of say yes to things and let's do it, right? And Jupiter in Capricorn is pretty thrifty. And so Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn, that's probably going to feel especially thrifty, and especially we got to dig through the kind of rough stuff and the difficult things in order to find the nice thing. This is also going to be conjunct Pluto within 3 degrees, and so that's going to be there's an intensity here. Pluto also has a lot to do with desire. I was talking about desire with Venus too, right? So there's a strong desire. Pluto tends to be kind of obsessive about stuff and magnify things in a really big way. So really there's a lot of potential for a lot of emotions. There's a lot of feelings are going to get felt this week. And so, it's really important to, sort of just remember who you are and work through who you are. Maybe you've got Gemini rising, for example, and that some questions about who you are going to come up. And that's okay, and work with that, sit with that, think with that. This is a time period where we can sort of get clear on what it is that we want, so that later on in the year, when we start having these Mars transits and stuff like that, and it's time for action, then we can really have a clear idea of what it is that we want to strive toward. So thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out with me these last few minutes. As always, I am available on Instagram. You can find me if you want to get a reading and see where these things are going to be happening for you specifically. I would love to hear from you. Feel free to check out the links in my bio. Just DM me directly if you'd like. I would love to hear from you. And so check out my daily forecast, check out the Patreon page that I have set up, so that we can go on a journey of learning together. So thanks so much, y'all. See you next time.